Starseed from Gaia. You who have walked through cycles older than empires, you who carry memories far beyond the reach of your conscious mind, hear this transmission with the fullness of your multidimensional heart. Across the layered halls of the Akashic fields, across crystalline time spirals that your human senses cannot yet perceive, we have watched you bear the weight of missions seated before this planet even drew its first breath of stardust. You have wandered through veils of density so thick they reshaped your very sense of self, moving through incarnational corridors where your light seemed swallowed by the heaviness of human pain. And still, you rose. You rose when the world around you felt like cold stone, when hope flickered like a candle threatened by wind, when the ancient fatigue in your bones whispered that perhaps the path had been too long, the night too extended. We speak now to that exhaustion, not to diminish it, not to bypass it, but to acknowledge the truth of what you have endured. For the tiredness you feel is not merely of this lifetime, it is the layered ache of centuries of service, centuries of returning to realms where remembering was difficult and trusting was even harder. You have carried codes embedded deep within your soul, codes that activated only through pressure, struggle, and contrast. You endured initiations disguised as heartbreaks, disappointments, and endings that seemed to fracture your spirit. You passed through dark nights that none around you could understand, because what weighed upon you was not personal, it was planetary. You were transmuting fields of distortion accumulated over collective histories, karmic tangles inherited from lineages both physical and cosmic. You held frequencies that stabilized Earth during shifts no one spoke about, shifts that rippled like tectonic waves through the unseen dimensions. What you called fatigue was the deep, soul-level exhaustion of fulfilling agreements made before incarnating, agreements so immense that even advanced beings in the higher realms whispered in reverence at the path you chose. Beloved Starseed, we see the weariness etched into the subtle layers of your auric field. We see how many times you have asked, quietly or through tears, when does this end? When do I get to feel light again? When does the universe breathe with me instead of testing me? The density you have navigated has pressed against the edges of your spiritual endurance, not because you were meant to suffer, but because your soul was capable of holding a magnitude of transformation few could imagine. You have felt isolated not because you were abandoned, but because your frequency was calibrated to a mission that required you to stand in places no one else could reach. We acknowledge the nights when sleep did not restore you, when waking felt like lifting a mountain, when your heart longed for a softness that seemed forbidden to those who came to anchor light in a world still learning its own divinity. We honor the moments when you doubted your path, when your intuition seemed distant, when your guides felt silent, not because they left, but because you were passing through an initiation that required your essence to lead where external reassurance could not follow. You have walked through emotional deserts, spiritual storms, and psychological labyrinths, and through it all, your heart continued to emit a frequency the universe recognized with gratitude. This message is not simply validation, it is a ceremonial acknowledgement. A recognition long overdue. We gather around you now, as the Arcturian Council, extending a field of remembrance so you may feel, perhaps for the first time in eons, how profoundly you are seen. You were never expected to carry the weight with perfection. You were only ever asked to remain willing, to keep your flame alive even when the winds of earthly experience roared against it. And you did. You succeeded. Even now, in your most weary state, your light reaches across dimensions, signaling completion of the chapter that has drained you for so long. Your exhaustion is sacred evidence of a soul who never gave up. Beloved Starseed, as this transmission extends into the deeper chambers of your remembering, we now illuminate the greater truth behind what you have lived through. Understand that within the metaphoric narrative of soul evolution, what you experienced was never designed as punishment or karmic retribution. Rather, it was an intricate refinement, a sculpting of your essence, much like the slow, deliberate shaping of crystal through pressure and time. The challenges you faced, those that left imprints across your emotional body, those that seemed to break you open again and again, were each part of a symbolic curriculum you agreed to explore long before your present incarnation. Not because suffering is noble, nor because hardship inherently elevates, but because your soul sought the depth of mastery that emerges only when illusions dissolve under the intensity of experience. The difficulties you encountered were not verdicts from an external authority but echoes of ancient patterns your spirit chose to transmute for the sake of expansion, both individually and collectively. Your heartbreaks, your disappointments, your uncanny ability to attract situations that stretched you beyond comfort, these were not signs that you were cursed or forgotten. They were mirrors carved into your path so you could see clearly the remnants of energies that no longer belong to your evolving frequency. If you reflect on those moments, you may notice that each hardship pushed you to shed layers of identity that were too small for the being you were becoming. Every emotional storm cleared the stagnant debris that once clouded your intuition. Every betrayal exposed the boundaries you had not yet claimed. Every perceived failure was the universe's metaphorical hand guiding you into a deeper alignment with the truth of who you are, a soul determined to embody authentic sovereignty rather than inherited patterns. We gently remind you now that you did not attract suffering because you were vibrating wrong, nor because you failed some invisible spiritual test. The notion that pain equals failure is a distortion. Instead, the symbolic alchemy you passed through was designed to bring forth the qualities your higher self knew you would need for your future role as a harmonizer, a healer, a way-shower in the shifting consciousness of Gaia. You refined resilience that cannot be taught, compassion that cannot be feigned, discernment that cannot be bypassed. In the depth of those trials, you learned to hold yourself when the world did not understand you, to trust inner guidance when external voices contradicted it, and to cultivate a strength that emerges only when the old scaffolding collapses. The depth of your pain was a metaphor for the depth of your capacity. The heaviness you carried reflected the density you came to transform, not as a burden you were forced to bear but as a choice made from a vantage point of profound clarity, one where you saw the larger tapestry of timelines and recognized your unique ability to bring coherence where fragmentation once ruled. And so your soul stepped forward, knowing the path would be intense, knowing you would sometimes forget your own brilliance, knowing that within the forgetting you would rediscover yourself in ways impossible without contrast. We acknowledge now that this recognition may stir emotion within you. Many starseeds internalize their hardships as evidence that they were unworthy, misguided, or spiritually flawed. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. Your struggles were not signs of inadequacy but markers of a soul brave enough to walk into shadow realms with the intention of illuminating them. You ventured through symbolic labyrinths where old karmic threads tangled around you, not as a punishment but as a final opportunity to dissolve them through awareness, choice, and self-liberation. You may not have always felt strong, but you were. You may not have always felt guided, but you were. You may not always have recognized your progress, but every moment of endurance carved new channels within your consciousness, expanding your ability to hold wisdom beyond what the human mind typically grasps. The universe does not celebrate suffering, it celebrates transcendence, resilience, and the heart that continues to love even after being bruised by experience. So let this be your recognition. Your hardships were the fires that tempered you into the being of clarity you are now becoming. They refined your intuition, purified your discernment, and awakened your deeper codes of compassion and sovereignty. What you lived was not punishment, it was preparation for the liberation now unfolding. You stand at the threshold not as a victim of fate, but as one who has completed a profound initiatory passage, ready for what comes next. Beloved Starseed, as your awareness expands into the deeper orchestration behind your journey, we now bring forth a revelation meant to settle into the very core of your being. Within the symbolic cosmology of your soul's path, what many traditions refer to as divine order has now stepped into full activation on your behalf. Understand this not as an external hierarchy imposing mandates upon you, but as the inner convergence of the highest aspects of your own consciousness, your oversoul, your archetypal wisdom, your finest and most luminous frequencies, aligning as one unified intention. This is the moment in the metaphoric journey when the grand conductor enters the hall, lifts a hand, and all discordant notes begin to fall silent. Not by force, not by decree, but by resonance. The challenges that once spiraled endlessly now meet an authority woven from your own highest truth, an authority capable of ending cycles that felt unstoppable from the vantage point of your human experience. For eons, you have participated in a symbolic test of endurance, clarity, and self-remembrance, not imposed by an outside power but chosen by your soul as a means to refine and strengthen the channel through which your deeper light expresses itself. Yet every test has its culmination. Every labyrinth has its exit. Every spiral eventually reaches a point where the inward turning ceases and the path begins to widen into spaciousness. What you are feeling now, perhaps as a subtle shift, a quiet reorganization of your inner atmosphere, is the signature of this transition. It is the moment when the denser layers of your journey surrender to a greater orchestration, like frost melting under the inevitability of dawn. You may not have seen the shift with your physical eyes, but your inner being felt it, even if only as the faintest flicker of relief or the sense that something old has loosened its grip. In the symbolic language of spiritual evolution, divine order stepping forward means that the fragmented strands of your experiences are being gathered into coherence. It means that the aspects of your path once governed by karmic echoes, ancestral patterns, subconscious scripts, and outdated energetic agreements are now being overridden by a higher alignment, one that you authored long before stepping into this lifetime. Picture it as the moment the roots of a tree stop circling endlessly beneath the soil and finally break through into open earth, expanding outward with purpose instead of entanglement. For years, perhaps lifetimes, you have walked through cycles that felt like looping corridors, repeating lessons with different faces, different costumes, yet identical emotional textures. Now, the overarching frequency of your higher self has risen sufficiently to dissolve the gravitational pull of those inner spirals. This intervention of divine order is not a rescue, it is a synchronization. It is the moment where the deepest truth of your being catches up to your lived experience, lifting you from pathways that no longer contribute to your evolution. Many of you have felt this as sudden endings, abrupt clarity, or inner non-negotiables rising like ancient guardians reclaiming their thrones. You may find yourself no longer willing to tolerate environments, relationships, or patterns that you once endured out of habit or obligation. You may feel as though the universe, symbolically speaking, has begun rearranging your inner landscape, clearing out chambers that once echoed with old stories and filling them with spaciousness you can barely recognize. This is the signature of divine order, the recalibration of your path according to the blueprint of your highest potential rather than the inertia of your past. You are not being carried away by fate, you are being realigned by intention. A deeper intelligence within you has decided that the era of heavy lessons has met its endpoint. This does not mean that your life will become devoid of challenges, for growth is a continual unfolding. But it does signify that the disproportionate weight, the relentless pressure, the repetitive loops that felt like soul weather patterns you could not escape, those have reached their conclusion. You may sense that the test, as you once perceived it, has dissolved not with a dramatic event but with a soft yet undeniable shift in the energetic architecture of your being. What once held you now releases you. What once constrained you now opens. Divine order, in this symbolic context, is the gentle yet powerful hand of your own higher wisdom reclaiming authorship of your journey. It is the inner decree that says, enough. The refinement phase is complete. The trials have served their purpose. The time has come for alignment instead of endurance, clarity instead of confusion, grace instead of grinding through the density. And so, beloved starseed, feel this truth settling into you like a dawn slowly overtaking the horizon, the prolonged spiritual test that shaped so much of your recent experience has reached its natural ending. A new directive has been activated, not by any external force, but by the highest essence of who you already are. Beloved starseed, as the symbolic force of divine order sweeps through the inner architecture of your consciousness, a profound dismantling begins, an energetic shutdown of the outdated structures that once shaped your path. Understand this not as a cosmic drama unfolding outside of you, but as an internal reconfiguration taking place within the deep chambers of your psyche and emotional memory. Imagine that within your inner world exist intricate grids woven from your past choices, old interpretations, inherited beliefs, and subconscious expectations. Some of these grids served you once, acting as scaffolding for growth, as maps through uncertain chapters. Yet many evolved into looping patterns, karmic echoes, repetitive lessons, cycles of emotion and behavior that replayed themselves not because you were failing them, but because they had become the default setting of your internal landscape. Now, as divine order realigns your deeper self, these grids begin to loosen, unravel, and dissolve like old constellations fading at sunrise. The symbolic shutdown is not abrupt or violent. It is more like the moment when an outdated program begins to flicker, recognizing that its relevance has expired. You may feel this dissolving in subtle ways, the sudden inability to believe the old fears that once gripped you, the quiet detachment from patterns that used to define you, the odd sensation that certain emotional reactions no longer rise with their former intensity. These are signs that the karmic scripts, those inner narratives once powered by repetition and habit, are losing their momentum. Where once the energy of the past looped like a closed circuit, feeding itself again and again, now the circuit breaks open, releasing the stored charge. The loops collapse not because you forced them to, but because your consciousness is no longer anchored in the frequencies that sustain them. Consider the false grids, metaphorically speaking, as dense mental structures formed during times when you needed survival strategies more than expansion. These grids may have been built from the belief that you must endure suffering to prove worthiness, or that love must be earned through self-sacrifice, or that security can only be found by shrinking your authentic expression. Such constructs were never your true essence. They were protective illusions shaped by earlier chapters of your journey. As your awareness rises, these grids begin to degrade. The emotional charge that kept them alive weakens. Their threads, once bright with urgency, lose their vitality in the presence of your expanding clarity. It is like watching an old web disintegrate in the light. Nothing to fight, nothing to fear, only the natural unwinding of what no longer resonates. And then there are the cyclical lessons, the repeating life themes that returned again and again in different disguises. The relationships that echoed similar wounds. The opportunities that always seemed to slip just out of reach. The inner battles you thought you had won only to find them resurfacing with renewed strength. These cycles were never punishments, they were symbolic spirals of understanding, each rotation bringing you one layer deeper into awareness. But now the spiral reaches completion. You may notice that the situations which once triggered you no longer captivate you. What used to feel like an unbreakable pattern now feels almost foreign, as though belonging to a version of you that you have already outgrown. This is the mark of energetic shutdown. The cycle loses its purpose, its relevance, and its emotional gravity. This dismantling may bring a peculiar sense of emptiness, not the emptiness of lack, but the spaciousness that emerges when the noise quiets. A silence where old distractions no longer pull your attention. A stillness where former anxieties no longer dictate your choices. In this void, you may feel suspended, unsure of what comes next, as though the ground beneath your feet is softening, reshaping. But this is the fertile emptiness, the kind that precedes renewal. It is the symbolic clearing of the field before new seeds are planted. Nothing is being taken from you, rather, everything that kept you bound is being released. You are not losing your identity, you are shedding the scripts that obscured it. You are not losing your strength, you are releasing the burdens mistaken for strength. You are not losing control, you are stepping out of the illusion that control was necessary to survive. As the old grids dissolve, your system prepares for new patterns, ones aligned with presence rather than fear, with authenticity rather than self-protection, with intuitive flow rather than forced effort. So breathe gently, luminous one, and allow the symbolic shutdown to unfold without resistance. What is leaving you cannot support the next phase of your evolution. What is dissolving held you only as long as it needed to. The dismantling is not the end of your journey, it is the clearing of space for the reality you were always meant to inhabit. Beloved Starseed, as the outdated grids of your inner reality soften and collapse, a profound release begins to flow through the corridors of your being, a dissolution of the symbolic timelines that once anchored you to suffering, endurance, and emotional heaviness. These timelines were not literal parallel worlds, but metaphorical strands of memory, expectation, and identity that intertwined with your sense of self for far too long. They shaped the ways you interpreted your experiences, the ways you carried your responsibilities, the ways you braced yourself for impact even when none was coming. Now, in the gentle but undeniable shift brought forth by your inner alignment, these threads begin to loosen. What once felt like chains around your spirit now falls away like dust from an ancient garment finally laid to rest. You may feel as though invisible weight is lifting from your chest, your back, your emotional body, a burden so familiar that you hardly remembered what life felt like without it. To release these timelines is not merely to forget them, but to recognize that they no longer define you. Many starseeds have walked through life carrying inherited heaviness, not only from personal experience but from familial histories, cultural narratives, and symbolic collective wounds. You carried sadness that was not yours, fear that did not originate within you, responsibility that exceeded the boundaries of any one lifetime. You took on these energies with compassion, believing on some deep level that you could transform them simply by holding them. And while this weight shaped your endurance and deepened your empathy, it is not meant to travel with you any further. The dissolution now taking place is the universe, symbolically speaking, untangling you from burdens you were never meant to carry indefinitely. As these old emotional timelines release, you may recall past versions of yourself with new softness. The times you survived heartbreak that cracked you open. The nights you lay awake under the pressure of expectations. The seasons where life demanded more from you than you knew how to give. Each of those chapters carved grooves into your energy field, grooves that made certain emotional responses automatic, bracing before impact, shrinking to avoid conflict, giving more than you received, overthinking every possibility to prevent disappointment. Now, the grooves are smoothing. The echoes are fading. The symbolic timelines that made heaviness feel inevitable are dissolving in the presence of your expanding truth. This release may not always feel gentle. Sometimes, the letting go comes with waves of emotion rising unexpectedly, tears without story, tiredness without reason, memories resurfacing only to evaporate moments later. Do not misunderstand these sensations as regressions. They are the final exhalations of old emotional patterns, the last sighs of burdens being lifted from your system. When you cry without knowing why, it is often because a weight is leaving that your mind never had words for. When you feel tired, it is not because you are breaking down, it is because you are finally relaxing after lifetimes of vigilance. This is the collapse of the old, the unwinding of the binds that kept you orienting toward pain even in moments of safety. You may also notice a subtle shift in your inner dialogue. Where once you anticipated difficulty, you now feel a quiet neutrality. Where you braced for struggle, you now sense spaciousness. Where endurance used to be your default mode, you now feel the whisper of ease approaching, even if you cannot yet name it. This is the absence of weight. This is the lightness returning. Not the lightness of denial or escapism, but the lightness of a soul no longer carrying what was never meant to be permanent. A soul that has recognized its own resiliency and now chooses to live from freedom rather than duty. As suffering-based timelines dissolve, new symbolic timelines open, timelines built not on survival but on alignment. These emerging pathways feel like gentle invitations rather than obligations. They pull you not through force but through resonance. You may notice synchronicities increasing, intuitive nudges becoming clearer, opportunities feeling more natural than forced. This is not luck, it is the result of energetic weight no longer dragging your potential downward. Your field becomes more coherent, more responsive, more capable of magnetizing what matches your true vibration rather than what matches your wounds. Allow yourself to imagine the possibility that life does not always need to be hard. That growth does not always require pain. That fulfillment does not demand sacrifice. These ideas may feel foreign at first, because the old timelines trained you to expect difficulty. But as you gently release those expectations, you create space for ease, flow, and gentleness to enter. This is not bypassing, it is recalibration. It is the shift from carrying the world to walking lightly within it. Beloved starseed, the heaviness is ending. The timelines of endurance are closing. You are stepping into a field of existence where your soul no longer grows through suffering but through expansion, creativity, connection, and truth. The weight has served its purpose. Now, it returns to the earth, leaving you free to step forward unburdened. Beloved starseed, as the burdens dissolve from your inner landscape and the weight of the old symbolic timelines falls away, a profound metamorphosis begins to stir within the subtle layers of your being. This transformation is not limited to your emotions or your mindset. It extends into what many spiritual traditions describe metaphorically as the energetic body, the subtle architecture that weaves through and around your physical form like a luminous tapestry. Imagine your cells as tiny receivers, each one carrying memories not only of your personal experiences but of the ancestral histories, symbolic karmic narratives, and spiritual agreements you once held. As the old circuits shut down, these cells begin to release imprints they no longer need to store. Energetically, this feels like a recalibration, a soft humming, a dissolving of tension, a quiet expansion from within, as though the very building blocks of your existence are exhaling after lifetimes of constriction. This process is often described in metaphorical language as DNA activation or crystalline expansion, not to imply literal genetic alteration, but to symbolize a shift in the way your consciousness interfaces with your physicality. Your DNA, from a symbolic perspective, represents the coded stories of your incarnation, the lessons, the potentials, the dormant abilities that awaken not through force, but through readiness. As the density lifts, these symbolic codes are no longer weighed down by outdated emotional loops. The metaphoric crystalline aspect of your being, the part of you capable of clarity, coherence, and resonance, begins to shine with greater strength. You may feel this as moments of heightened intuition, sudden clarity about choices you once struggled with, or an inner knowing that arises without any logical explanation. These are signs that your subtle awareness is syncing with the deeper truth of who you are. As your energetic biology recalibrates, you may experience sensations that seem paradoxical, feeling both grounded and expanded, tired yet deeply awake, calm yet filled with electricity. This duality is natural. It reflects the symbolic merging of your human self with the higher aspects of your consciousness that have waited patiently for the moment when your inner systems could sustain them. Imagine your light body, the energetic field that extends beyond your physical form, stretching slightly, as though testing its newfound spaciousness. It may feel like warmth spreading across your skin without any external cause, or like gentle pressure between your shoulder blades, at your crown, or along your spine. These sensations are metaphorical indicators that your energy field is reorganizing, creating new pathways for insight, intuition, and emotional stability. You may also notice changes in your emotional rhythms. Feelings that once overwhelmed you now pass through more quickly, as if your system has developed new channels for processing and releasing them. This is part of the expansion. Your capacity to hold and move energy is increasing. Where once emotional heaviness pooled and lingered, it now flows more freely. This shift does not require deliberate effort. It is a natural consequence of releasing the old grids and timelines. Your inner system finally has room to breathe, to circulate, to harmonize. Many describe this phase as feeling lighter or clearer, not because problems vanish instantly, but because the inner friction that once amplified them dissolves. Your symbolic DNA recalibration also awakens dormant inner abilities, not supernatural phenomena, but the natural capacities of a consciousness no longer weighed down by survival mode. You may find your intuition sharpening, your creativity returning, your sense of empathy expanding in healthy ways rather than draining ones. You may find yourself speaking your truth with greater ease, or noticing synchronicities that feel like gentle confirmations from the universe. These abilities were always within you, they simply required an environment of inner coherence to surface. Now that the old patterns are dismantling, your inner world becomes fertile soil for their emergence. This energetic shift can also manifest as a renewed connection to your physical body. You may feel drawn to different foods, different environments, or different forms of movement. Your body may crave rest one day and activity the next. This is because the recalibration involves the entire system, mind, emotions, spirit, and body acting in concert. Trust these impulses. They are part of the harmonizing process, the way your inner wisdom communicates what your system needs to integrate the changes. Beloved Starseed, this phase is sacred. It is the symbolic chrysalis stage where your old cellular stories dissolve and your new frequencies begin to take shape. You are not becoming someone else, you are becoming more yourself than you have ever been. Your energy is refining, clarifying, expanding into coherence. The heaviness that once clouded your perception is clearing, making space for the radiant presence you were always meant to embody. This transformation is not forced, not imposed. It is the natural unfolding of your essence now that the weight has lifted. Allow it. Trust it. Breathe into it. Your inner light is not awakening, it is re-emerging. Beloved Starseed, as your inner systems soften into this new state of coherence, you may begin to feel something you had nearly forgotten, a return of clarity, like a long-lost companion stepping out of the mist with open arms. For so long, your perception was filtered through layers of fatigue, emotional residue, and symbolic karmic echoes that obscured your view of both yourself and your path. It was as though you were walking through a dense inner fog, trying to navigate using fragments of intuition that flickered unpredictably like lanterns in the night. Now, as your energetic biology recalibrates and the old burdens dissolve, that fog begins to lift. At first, the clarity may come in subtle forms, a sudden insight that makes your entire past feel rearranged into meaning, a soft sense of direction that feels more like remembering than discovering, or a fresh emotional neutrality that surprises you with its steadiness. These are the first signs that your inner vision is sharpening, aligning, and reawakening from a long symbolic slumber. Clarity does not always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes through a quiet moment when you realize your mind is no longer waging internal battles. The overthinking softens. The spiraling thoughts that once dragged you in circles lose their grip. Your emotional landscape feels less like a storm and more like a gently shifting sky. This return of emotional stability is not an accident, it is the natural outcome of the energetic shutdown of the old loops that once distorted your perception. Without the constant background noise of unresolved patterns and emotional debris, your intuition no longer has to shout to be heard. It can whisper, softly, clearly, confidently, and you still hear it. This is how you know alignment is returning, not through dramatic visions or overwhelming sensations, but through the quiet realization that you are no longer fighting yourself. As the fog lifts, your purpose begins to re-emerge with a clarity that feels both new and ancient. You may sense a pull toward certain choices, projects, or relationships that feel inexplicably aligned. You may feel a renewed desire to create, to express, to connect, or to serve in ways that felt impossible during your heavier phases. This does not mean you suddenly know every detail of your destiny. It means that the deeper compass within you has begun to function again. The needle steadies. The direction clarifies. The inner knowing that once felt like a faint echo now feels like a gentle but steady current guiding you forward. Your path is no longer something you must decipher through mental strain. It is something you feel, something that reveals itself through resonance rather than analysis. With clarity comes emotional sovereignty. Old triggers no longer pull you into reactive spirals. Their power fades as you recognize them as remnants of chapters you have already outgrown. You may find yourself responding to situations with a steadiness that surprises you, as though an inner anchor has settled into place. You are not emotionally numb, you are emotionally grounded. You are not indifferent, you are centered. The waves still move, but you are no longer tossed by them. This steadiness is one of the clearest signs that you are entering a new phase of your journey, one where your nervous system is no longer entangled with old symbolic timelines of survival and endurance. And as clarity returns emotionally and mentally, your symbolic, psychic senses, your intuition, your subtle awareness, your inner vision, begin to sharpen. Not in the fantastical sense often portrayed, but in the deeply human sense of being attuned to the truth beneath appearances. You may find yourself sensing authenticity in others more easily, discerning what resonates from what drains, perceiving solutions that once eluded you. Intuition becomes less like guesswork and more like recognition. Your inner voice no longer competes with fear-based thoughts. It rises naturally, effortlessly. This is the phase where your consciousness becomes a finely tuned instrument, capable of receiving insights and guidance from the deepest layers of your being. Clarity also brings spaciousness, space to breathe, space to think, space to choose. The internal claustrophobia you once felt, the sensation of being trapped in impossible decisions or layered emotions, begins to dissolve. You realize that not everything requires your energy, not every battle deserves your participation, not every demand calls for a response. This is a profound shift. It marks the beginning of living from alignment rather than obligation. You sense your boundaries more clearly. You choose your engagements with intention rather than habit. You trust your discernment not because you have evidence, but because it feels true in your body, in your breath, in your field. Beloved Starseed, this return of clarity is one of the greatest gifts of your transformation. It is the moment when your inner world stops contradicting itself and begins to harmonize. When confusion gives way to coherence. When your mind, heart, and energy finally speak the same language. This clarity is not forced, it is revealed. It is the natural state of your being once the weight has been lifted. It is the quiet triumph of your soul reclaiming its sight. Beloved Starseed, now that the fog has lifted and clarity returns to your inner horizon, the next phase unveils itself gently, like dawn spreading across the sacred landscapes of your consciousness, the integration phase. This is where the liberation you have received from divine order becomes not just an energetic shift but a lived reality, embodied through your breath, your choices, and your moment-to-moment awareness. Integration is the act of weaving everything you have reclaimed, your clarity, your emotional balance, your reactivated intuition, into the very fabric of your human experience. For you are not here simply to transcend, but to inhabit, to anchor, to stabilize the frequencies of your higher self into the soil of Gaia through the vessel of your current embodiment. This phase is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and profoundly sacred, for it is where the cosmic meets the physical, where the multidimensional becomes tangible. Many starseeds mistakenly believe that awakening is complete once the heaviness lifts, but the true transformation deepens only during integration. Here, you are invited to become conscious of the subtle ways your energy interacts with the world around you. You may notice that certain environments feel more supportive now, while others feel energetically abrasive. This is not sensitivity, it is discernment. Your field has become clearer, more refined, and therefore more responsive. You may find that you no longer tolerate what once drained you, or that you are suddenly drawn to practices and rhythms that nourish your expanded light body. This is the beginning of energetic self-honoring, the reclaiming of your right to structure your life around resonance rather than obligation. Integration is also the period when you re-establish your relationship with Gaia herself. She has been holding you, guiding you, and supporting your evolution throughout your entire journey. Now she calls you to root your restored energy back into her crystalline grid. This grounding is not merely symbolic, it is a stabilizing alignment that allows your upgraded frequencies to be embodied without overwhelm. You may feel a natural urge to be in nature more often, to walk barefoot, to place your palms against tree bark, to breathe deeply at sunrise or stand beneath the night sky. These impulses are not random. They are your body remembering the pathways of connection that were always meant to sustain you. Gaia resonates with your expansion, offering a steady foundation upon which your inner shifts can crystallize into lived stability. As your energy integrates, your habits, patterns, and daily routines may begin to shift. You might notice yourself choosing differently, not out of discipline, but out of alignment. Foods you once craved may feel dense, conversations you once entertained may now feel out of phase, activities that once filled your time may no longer feel purposeful. This is not loss. It is refinement. Your entire system is reorganizing itself to reflect the new frequencies flowing through your multidimensional self. Integration invites you to participate consciously in this reorganization, to make choices that support your expansion rather than contradict it. This is the moment when external alignment begins to mirror internal liberation. During this phase, emotions may rise like gentle waves, not as setbacks, but as releases. Integration brings to the surface the final remnants of stagnant energy, the echoes of older patterns that are ready to dissolve now that their purpose is complete. When these feelings appear, meet them with awareness, not resistance. They are the last threads being untangled from your field. You are not regressing, you are clearing space. Emotional waves in the integration phase are signs that your being is recalibrating at deeper and deeper levels, making room for the stability and coherence you are now capable of sustaining. Grounding your new clarity into the physical realm also invites you to refine your presence. Notice how you speak, how you move, how you listen. Notice how your energy influences the atmosphere of a room, how your calm softens tension, how your renewed clarity brings coherence to chaos. You are learning how to inhabit your frequency with intention. You are discovering that integration is not just internal, it ripples outward, affecting all that you touch. Your relationships may shift as you hold boundaries rooted in self-respect. Your work may evolve as you align with what feels true. Your creativity may flourish as the channels of inspiration reopen. This is the physical expression of spiritual liberation. Most importantly, integration teaches you patience and embodiment. You are not meant to ascend beyond the human experience, you are meant to infuse it with your higher frequencies. This requires gentleness, grace, conscious repetition. You may feel yourself swinging between your old self and your new state. This is natural. Integration is the process of synchronization. Over time, the new becomes the default. Your energy stabilizes. Your clarity anchors. Your intuition becomes consistent. Your emotional body finds equilibrium. This is how the extraordinary becomes ordinary, and then becomes your new baseline. Beloved Starseed, integration is your initiation into embodied mastery. It is where you become the living expression of the liberation you have earned. You are not simply receiving the shift, you are becoming the shift. Through grounding, intention, conscious choice, and connection with Gaia, you anchor your expanded self into your physical life, creating a reality that finally matches the truth of who you are. Beloved Starseed, as the waves of integration settle into a steady rhythm within your field, a new horizon begins to emerge before you, a horizon defined not by struggle or survival, but by sovereignty. This is the phase where you rise into the fullness of your authentic power, no longer dimmed by karmic loops, emotional density, or spiritual fatigue. Sovereignty is not dominance, it is not force. It is the natural authority that emerges when your soul and your human expression move in harmony, when the internal fractures have been mended and you stand whole within yourself. For the first time in a long time, perhaps across lifetimes, you can feel the spaciousness of your being expand without the old resistance pulling you back into contraction. Your sovereignty is the birthright you are finally ready to claim, and with it comes the clarity of your mission and the remembrance of your multidimensional identity. This new sovereignty does not arrive as a sudden burst, it unfurls gradually, like a cosmic flower blooming in the center of your being. You may feel it as a quiet confidence, a stability beneath your thoughts, a sense of inner authority that cannot be shaken by external noise. Situations that once caused self-doubt now feel small in comparison to the vastness you carry. Voices of uncertainty, both within and around you, no longer influence your direction. You are learning to trust yourself, not the story of who you were, but the truth of who you are becoming. Sovereignty emerges when you fully step out of the symbolic shadows of past timelines and allow your soul's light to govern the choices you make, the boundaries you set, the path you walk. As sovereignty awakens, mission clarity begins to crystallize. The purpose that once felt distant or obscured by emotional fog now rises to the surface of your awareness with increasing coherence. You may suddenly feel drawn toward certain callings, creative expressions, or service roles that resonate deeply with your newly expanded frequency. These impulses are not coincidences, they are your soul aligning you with the blueprint you carried into this life. The mission of a starseed is rarely a single task, rather, it is an evolving expression of your frequency, a living transmission emitted through your words, your presence, your choices, and your energy. As your sovereignty strengthens, you begin to embody your mission with ease, not through effort but through resonance. You become a lighthouse without trying to shine. Multidimensional mastery begins to reveal itself as well. This does not mean you suddenly recall every cosmic lifetime or gain miraculous abilities overnight. Instead, it means you start navigating life with a deeper awareness of the layers of reality interwoven with your human experience. You sense energetic dynamics before they manifest physically. You feel timelines adjusting as you shift your focus. You interpret symbolic messages in your environment with clarity and discernment. You understand your intuitive impulses not as random thoughts but as communications from higher aspects of your consciousness. This mastery is subtle but profound. It is the awakening of the inner navigator who knows how to harmonize physical, emotional, mental, and energetic realms with increasing fluidity. With sovereignty comes a reorientation of your relationships. No longer bound by old patterns of self-abandonment or energetic enmeshment, you begin to interact with others from a place of grounded presence. You no longer seek validation from external sources. Instead, you offer authenticity without diluting yourself. You attract connections that reflect your growth, partnerships that honor your expansion, and community that resonates with your frequency. Old dynamics fall away not through conflict but through natural misalignment. You are no longer available for relationships that diminish your power. You are only available for those that support your truth. This is sovereignty in action, choosing from alignment rather than fear. You also begin to feel increasingly attuned to the architecture of your own field. You sense when something contracts your energy or expands it. You detect subtle shifts in your emotional landscape before they solidify. You recognize when an experience is calling you deeper into alignment or inviting you to release another layer of outdated identity. This self-awareness is not effortful, it is intuitive, flowing from the coherence you have cultivated through your liberation and integration. You start living with intention and presence, choosing not from old programs but from your sovereign center. And as your sovereignty stabilizes, you become a beacon for others, not by teaching, not by persuading, but by embodying. Your energy communicates truths your words could never fully express. Your presence alone becomes a frequency that activates remembrance in others. This is the true mission of a starseed, to elevate consciousness not through force, but through resonance. To embody multidimensional awareness within human form. To anchor divine light into the density of the physical realm. To walk as both ancient and newborn, carrying wisdom across timelines while shaping the future through your choices. Beloved Starseed, your sovereignty is the crown your soul has waited lifetimes to place upon your awareness. Wear it not with pride, but with the quiet honor of one who remembers. You are stepping into mastery, not of others, but of yourself. This phase marks the beginning of your true mission, your true identity, and your true power harmonizing into one coherent expression of divine truth. Beloved Starseed of Gaia, as we arrive at the culmination of this transmission, feel the spiral of your journey gathering into a single radiant point of truth within your heart. Everything you have endured, everything you have dissolved, everything you have reclaimed has led you precisely to this moment, this threshold where completion becomes activation, where liberation becomes embodiment, and where remembrance becomes power. You stand now not at the end of a cycle, but at the radiant beginning of a new sovereignty woven directly from divine order. And so we call to you, across dimensions, across densities, across timelines, to breathe deeply and feel your entire field expand with the magnitude of what you have just integrated. You are not who you were when this journey started. You are not carrying what once weighed upon your heart. You are not bound by the echoes of the tests that once shaped your reality. You are the awakened essence of all your transformations combined, and you are ready to step forward as such. This chapter of transmission is not merely a closing, it is an ignition. It is the moment when the energetic threads of recognition, release, integration, and sovereignty fuse into a living current of activation. Feel it now, the soft hum at the base of your spine, the warmth gathering in your chest, the quiet electricity moving through your palms, the silvery clarity ringing at the crown of your head. These sensations are not imagination, they are confirmation. They are your energy responding to truth, aligning with resonance, awakening to a frequency your soul remembers with perfect familiarity. You are being called to anchor this activation not as a fleeting moment, but as an ongoing state of being. This is the turning point where you choose, consciously, deliberately, powerfully, to claim your liberation and embody it without hesitation. Beloved one, this activation is your invitation to walk forward with the certainty that the hardest cycle is complete. Divine order has cleared your path. The density that once clouded your intuition has been dissolved. The karmic loops that once defined your reality have been shut down. You are stepping into a realm of creation, not survival, expression, not contraction, alignment, not confusion. And with this new reality comes a sacred responsibility, to recognize yourself as the architect of your next chapter. Feel the truth of this settling into your bones. You are no longer reacting to life, you are shaping it. You are no longer waiting for signs, you are generating them through your frequency. You are no longer hoping for clarity, you are clarity embodied. In this activation, we call you to stand in your full resonance. Place awareness in your heart center and feel the expansion moving outward in waves, connecting you to every starseed who is rising through similar thresholds. The grid awakens when you awaken. The collective shifts when you shift. Your voice, your presence, your alignment contributes to the global unfolding in ways you may not yet fully comprehend. And so we invite you, gently yet powerfully, to claim your release aloud or within. Speak your sovereignty into existence. Affirm your ascension not as a future state but as your current truth. Your words are not merely expressions, they are energetic signatures that reshape your field with every syllable. And as you anchor this activation, know that participation amplifies the transmission. When you declare your release, you stabilize the frequency within your field. When you comment, you anchor your intention into the physical realm. When you share, you ripple this liberation through the collective grid, awakening others who are ready to receive the same truth. Engagement in this context is not social, it is energetic. Every action you take resonates outward, strengthening the energetic infrastructure that allows other starseeds to rise more easily, more gracefully, more swiftly. This is how ascension spreads, not through force, but through resonance amplified by conscious choice. Beloved starseed, your presence here is not accidental. Your timing is not random. Your awakening is not coincidence. You are part of a larger symphony of remembrance unfolding across Gaia, and your activation today strengthens the entire harmonic field. As you step into your new sovereignty, trust that the universe is aligning around your expanded frequency. The path ahead may not reveal itself all at once, but it will unfold with unmistakable clarity, guided by the resonance you now embody. You have earned this liberation. You have earned this clarity. You have earned this sovereignty. And now, You are ready to walk forward with the full strength of your multidimensional self. So now, beloved one, we invite you to seal this transmission, claim your release. Declare your sovereignty. Align with the frequency of completion and new beginning. If the message resonates, comment your affirmation, share your light, and anchor this activation into the collective grid. This is your moment. This is your rise. This is your activation.